Hi, sweeties. How are you doing? Welcome to Seminara. Thank you so much for the support. Hope you all are doing great. Still on the anti-blackness that runs in Asian community, and Asians are actually the ones coming out to talk about how it is so bad that the modern minority that happens in their community, where they they want to be the best, they want to be the better people, not really better. They don't want to be the shouting ones, they don't want to be the ones talking so much, they don't want to be the one making it look like they are problematic. And this thing will also tell you how they do not want white people to see them as problematic, but they give people that look like me problems. And the Indian man was also talking about how the anti-blackness that runs in the community, how it started, especially when it comes to darker skinned people. Even them too, they do not also give mercy to darker skinned people from their own community. You all remember how Asians decided that affirmative action was going to be overturned. You know how affirmative action was. It was overturned in 2003, if I am not mistaken, when they felt like black people are the ones benefiting everything. I mean, benefiting everything of all things. The truth is that these people would rather take food from our mouth, right? Black people's mouth, and go and give it to white people just to please them. Like they also, some part of them did the last election. Let's get into this video.
Asian creators, please stop telling black humans that the Asian community is more left than right. That's not true. One, a simple fact about the Asian community is that too many of our own community do not vote. What does that say? You also have to bring up the fact that until the 2000s, Asians were always voting right. Asians are a patriarchal country, all of them. And then you have countries like Korea, which is my mother's country, who idolize white humans. So when you go to Korea and you have a whiter skin tone, they follow you around. I remember being a little girl in Korea, and this Korean girl was teaching me what to call Filipinos, what to call people from India, because they have a derogatory term for every dark-skinned Asian. But here's the thing. Korea has been colonized and were made into slaves by Japan. Korea and Japan have high suicide rates. Okay, but let's get back to the subject. Korea, Asian America as a whole in the USA are not left-leaning. They align more with white supremacy than anything. If we're a little bit over on the left on voting, that does not reflect the Asian community. You cannot conflate and conflict the two, especially when 73 million voted for Harris, 77 for Trump, and then 89 million humans did not vote who were registered to vote, or potential voters, like the collective. Stop trying to make it seem like Asian America is left-leaning. If Asia America was left-leaning, things would be a little bit different. If Asia America was left-leaning, we'd have demanded that a hate crime bill be for Black America and Native America first, because that would cover everybody. But no, Asia America accepted a hate crime bill against Asians. Are you fucking kidding me? The least most fucked with group of humans in our country. That's why I say Asia America is the other white meat. When you say things like Asian American is left-leaning, you are literally laughing in Black America's face, because it's proof that we're not left-leaning, not as a whole and not collectively. Also, if you're going to talk about Asians now voting more right, or more left, you have to talk about the government classifying Asian American, North, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders all into one group. It's the Pacific Islanders and the Hawaiians who are more left-leaning that padded our stats to make it look like Asian America's more left, when we are not. If an Asian says this in America, that Asian Americans are more left-leaning, no, we're not. That means they have no accountability, no true accountability for their community.
The model minority, but as it pertains to Asian women in particular. Because yes, we know that it's used to create a buffer between races and a sort of competition, like look at the Asians, they're the better minority, they're more obedient, and they can be successful as long as they listen and follow white people. Listen to. But that's not necessarily what this video is about. I just want to talk about how it manifests in my life as an Asian woman and explain some behaviors that maybe other minorities or groups don't understand when they see this coming from other Asian women. The model minority was a meticulous agenda, not just to divide other races. Because something I've noticed since being in Asia for several months now is that Asian women are the most susceptible to speak out and be fiery and be assertive. So not only was the model minority myth created in order to create competition between us and other minorities, but it's also to stifle our actual nature, our fiery nature. Like seriously, if you wrong a Chinese woman or if you even talk to her wrong, you'll hear about it for the next 2 weeks until you find a magical way to make things right by her, and it better be the best way possible. But we're very physical, we're very loud, and we're very assertive. When you take us and our natural personalities, put us in America, and force us to be the politest of all the minorities, force us to assimilate the most, we have these things called, for lack of a better word, extreme crash outs. As in, we can be goody two-shoes our whole lives for years and years and years, and it just takes that one straw that breaks the camel's back, and we lose our ever-loving minds because we were never supposed to be the polite, yes ma'am, no ma'am, I'm sorry, minority. And in a place where we're not the minority, I realized that we're not polite. It's also how we protect our bodies and assert our dominance in our home countries, which tend to be a little bit misogynistic. So when I say I've never fit in with a model minority, it's because I allow myself to express anger so that I don't one day erupt. Because I've erupted before and it's gotten me assaulted. And that's what other minorities don't understand. The social pressures put on us to be the perfect, most polite, goody two-shoes, straight A's, never standing up for ourselves when we get bullied or stepped on, sets us up for huge eruptions. And I know I can't speak for all East Asian countries on this, but at least in China, what I've noticed is that everyone's allowed to be loud. Everyone's allowed to shout. There's no such thing as a social credit score in China. That's an absolute lie created by the big 3-letter agency. But an environment where we're allowed to express ourselves and it not be seen as disrespect by everybody makes it so we're not erupting as much. And that's another reason why I could never hate Grace from Sinners. It shows that Ryan Coogler has really met and talked to some Asians, Asian women in particular. Because yes, I think her eruption was valid. And no, I don't love that it threatened everybody. But if everybody had seen her as a human, it would have gone over smoother. I think a key line there during her monologue, because she's explaining her thought process before she lets the vampires in. A key moment there where she decides, well, I'm gonna speak because y'all aren't gonna listen, is when she says something and Delta Slim responds with, now watch your tone. Something like that, because that's where I break too. I could be expressing my deepest, darkest needs to people that I think would listen, and they say, well, I don't like how you're saying that. That's when I'm going to lose my shit too, because it shows me that the people in the room, people that I thought I'd have allyship with, don't care about me either. It's just food for thought, because the West, America in particular, has created a very constrictive society where we all have our roles, and if we break from them, then even the people that we're supposed to be in allyship with are not okay with it. Just consider my words before saying, well, I think you're stupid and I disagree, because to be honest, not seeing where we're coming from is when we start to lose empathy as humans as well. And it creates a vicious cycle where we're all pissing each other off because of behaviors that we've each, as respective groups, been conditioned into. Anyways, that has nothing to do with any of my recent tirades. I just felt like talking about it. So I want to talk about the...
Yes, I am happy to answer this question. It's going to be a little bit of a robust answer, so it might be a little bit long. So I would put this on 2 times speed or grab a snack. You've probably seen this photo before, and I think it's very important, but this is the pre-colonial Indian caste system, which I'm not going to spend too much time on, but what is really important to remember is that Brahmins who are on the top of the caste system tend to be lighter. This is not a rule. This just tends to be a pattern. And why is that? It's because of things like sun exposure. Everything else on the caste system, while it's still respected on certain levels, they are exposed more to the sun. Like someone who is in the military, which is like below Brahmin directly, like it's respected, but they're also spending a lot of time outside. For someone who's like a farmer who's spending a lot of time outside, versus a street sweeper who are oftentimes maybe don't have the ability to live in a home, are homeless, or like spending 24/7 like working, trying to make ends meet. And so because of that, essentially Indian society has been built around this idea of an implicit bias, that the lighter you are, the more access to education you have, the closer like prestige you have when it comes to like ranking in society, and even a kind of religious proximity, that closer to God you are, like, or like the different like pantheons within Hinduism. But the thing is though, the caste system wasn't made for a globalized world. So when the British Raj invaded India and India became the crown jewel of the empire, the British saw a group of people who were already kind of divided and really leaned into it and really played up the religious aspect, which resulted in the partition, and the caste aspect, which they really mirrored their example of like the British aristocracy with the Indian caste system. Why do you think Meghan Markle marrying someone in the royal like family was such a big deal to them? We're kind of seeing the parallels. But under British control, the British sent a lot of Indian people across like all over the world. So you have Indian people being sent to Guyana, like Fiji, Canada, we're everywhere. Like Kenya, South Africa. Like there are like anywhere the British was, you will find Indian people, just because like India was Britain's like greatest tool. The thing is though, when Indian people were sent to these different countries, they also brought along with them their implicit biases, because the system that they have only ever really like manifested within other Indian people, but now they're living a globalized system under British control. But the thing is though, it's not created equally. For example, being Indo-Guyanese or Indo-Trini or Indo-Kenyan is very, very different than, let's say, being Indian-American or Indian-Canadian. And the main reason why is because Indian people who move to those countries are now adopting white supremacy systems on racial schema. And that's the biggest part. The racial schema of India is very, very different than the racial schema of the United States or the Caribbean or even like an African country like Kenya. Because race is a social construct. So race, as how we see it as, let's say, an American or an Indian person, may be very different than how a white American sees it, or like how a Brazilian sees it. And so because of that, in America, the United States, being white is always the advantage. There is no instance where being white is a disadvantage. So when you have a group of people who've already kind of implicitly associated being lighter with, access to more opportunity, access to more like things like that, even like things like safety, like they come to the United States and they see that whiteness is put on a pedestal, it doesn't surprise me that Indian people like will often feel the need to like form into it. They need to feel like they need to assimilate to it. Because remember, like every Indian person here at one point was like an immigrant. The thing that is though, and one thing that my community really needs to fucking work on, is the fact that like they are very, very selective of how they want to adopt the racial schema, which is sometimes good and sometimes is bad. I think the U.S. racial schema is incredibly flawed. I think the fact that Middle Easterners isn't within the white category is stupid and it's very weird. And there are other parts about how people tend to like cherry pick what is considered white or not. But I also feel like the Indian diaspora within the United States, I'll speak about the United States, I can't really speak about like British Indians or Canadian Indians. They tend to carry over a lot of anti-black sentiments and stuff, and have that, but they want to cherry pick it. Like a lot of this, it's like a running joke within our community of like, the brown boy who says the N-word and stuff, or like they want to speak in AAVE, they want to like adopt certain things in that, but then they would never like date a black person. They can't find black people desirable. They're extremely judgmental of the black community. They also don't recognize a lot of the work the black community made to even allowing Asian Americans and Indian Americans Indians into the United States. So I hope this makes sense. This is kind of my point of view. I am not an expert. I'm not an expert, but I think this is kind of like at least what I've parsed out through my own personal research, lived experience, stuff like that, as why I think it is the way that it is.
This is all I got from this video. It was still the anti-blackness that runs in your whole community. All of you, Asian community, that made you people get rid of affirmative action because you all thought it was black people that it was benefiting, and then started regretting it. True or false? For those that know, 2003, right? That they said black people are the ones benefiting from. Black people want them. Black people told them. It is not us, right? if you people ever look for a way to cut this, or because it was like they were going to write what's that called, like, petition, which they did, affirmative action was overturned, and now black people in terms of college, yes, it's because it was in terms of college admissions, right? And after that, their life became really worse. The pressure is getting worse. I've been saying this thing that people of color, are the people that migrated with the help of people, my own people, right? And came and decided to chase the people that helped them out. How did they say this? When you cut your nose to despise what? Sincerely speaking, the kind of anti-blackness that runs in Asian community, it's very huge. That are sometimes I look at them, I am like, some of them really want to be white so bad. It's obvious. You can see it. You feel it. Because I really do not understand how, people that are allowed, they are all in black neighborhoods. I mean, if they were kind enough, it's something everybody would have coexisted and all that, because you all know how welcoming. If there is something I know about black people, is that black people are very welcoming. In fact, they are over welcoming. They're hospitable. It's something that is unmatched. That they welcomed everybody, not until they started acting up. Right? So each time I look at how badly they treat black people, and I am like, I thought that black people said that, they agreed on September that they were going to boycott some certain kind of people. And I am not seeing a lot of energy coming towards that, but I will leave it at that. For those that know the boycott, it's a hair product. If it's not black owned hair product or black owned products, nobody's using it. They absolutely need all these boycotts, because they've been overwhelmed, and that welcome they gave them, they did not appreciate it. And still, you see them also still looking for a way to make people like, should I use harm? No. To make people that look like me look not important. I will draw the curtain here. Bye for now.